Hey guys, so this is part 2 of the tutorial. If you haven't watched part 1, just go look in my look under my channel and look for part 1 of this tutorial. I'm showing people how to configure frame relay using sub interfaces, and so far I've configured the cloud, and now I'm going to go on to actually configure the sub interfaces on each router. So if you're joining on part 2, which is here, I suggest you look for part 1. Okay, so for those of you who have been following me so far, I'm going to start with router 1, and I'm going to configure router 1 to be able to communicate with router 2, and then I'm going to configure router 2 to be able to speak with router 1. And although I'm configuring it now, we won't be able to communicate just yet because we need a routing protocol to be able to propagate the networks that are being used by frame relay to communicate. So and I'm going to be doing that in part 3 of this tutorial, so we'll only see if this really works right at the end, which is not best practice, but I'm just, with such a lot of stuff to do in this tutorial, I think it's best just to leave the routing protocol for the very end. So let's start with router 1. Okay, so first of all, let's get in here. En conft escalate yourself to global configuration mode, and let's give it a host name. So this is router 1, just so we know. Then you want to enter the interface, which is serial 30, and I believe they're all 30. I set it up just for consistency and just to make it a little bit easier to follow. So it'll always be serial 30. Then what you want to do is, at this time, you want to specify that you don't want to put an IP address in, and you want to tell the router that you want it to encapsulate its frames out of this interface using frame relay. And once you've done that, you want to activate the interface using the no shutdown command. Then you want to now you're going to create a sub interface. So the reason you didn't give it an IP address before is because if you had given that interface an IP address, you wouldn't have been able to create sub interfaces. So now we are going to create sub interfaces. So we go interface SE30, which is the interface I told you about earlier. And at the end of that, you want to put the delci. Now this isn't specifying the delci, but you want to put the delci number that you're going to use just for your reference, so it's a lot easier to when you're looking at audit logs and that sort of thing. It's a lot easier to see what that delci interface corresponds to. So in this case, we are doing this delci over here, so we're going to use 16, and you want to specify point-to-point frame relay, so point-to-point, and you can see it changed the line protocol to up, but that still doesn't mean anything because we need to give it an IP address. So we're going to give it 10.0.3.2, and you can see here that these two routers, delci 16 and 61, are going to be communicating on the 10.0.3.0 network, and router 1 just happens to have .2, so you want to give it 255.255.252 because there's only 2 IP addresses that we really need. I guess we could go .0, but let's just do 252 for now. Then you want to specify bandwidth. I like to use, well, the standard default is 64, so I use 64 most of the time. Then you want to use frame. Then now you want to specify the delci that this interface is going to be using. So frame relay interface delci. If you type int and hit tab, it completes the command for you, just so you know if you didn't know that. And as I mentioned before, 16. So you can see 16 here corresponds with the sub interface that we created up here, 16, and it's going to be going like this if you're looking at my mouse. Okay, so that's good for router 1. Now let's bounce over to router 2. So we're going to set the connection to go back to router 1 from router 2. So go here, oops, Control Shift 6 to get out of that, en conf t, interface se30, no IP address, and once you've set up your first sub interface, you don't have to come back and do this every time with the interface itself. You just do it initially on each router's interface to specify that interface is going to be using frame relay. So here we specify use frame relay, and then you want to say no shutdown. Oops, no shutdown. Then you want to specify the interface int se30 dot 61 and point to points. Then you want to give it an IP address and 10.0.3.1 and 255.255.255.252, and you want to give it bandwidth 64 again, they must match, and frame relay interface delci is going to be 61. Okay, that interface is set up. Now let's go over to router 1 again, and now we're going to set up the connection up to go from router 1 to router 2 through the cloud down to from router 1 to router 4, and then after we've configured router 1, we're going to go from router 4 back to router 1. So let's go over here. Let's create some space just so you can see. So interface se30, and now we can specify the delci straight away. We don't have to say no IP address, because we've already said this interface is going to be using frame relay, so we can just go straight to creating the point-to-point frame relay sub interface. So 64.2 points, IP address 10.0.2.2 255.255.255.252, which is a /30 prefix. Bandwidth is, what is it, 64, and frame relay interface delci, and as you can see we use 64, and over here it's 64, so 64, just to keep consistency. Okay, so now router 1 is technically all set up for frame relay. Now we just need to configure router 4. So the serial interface on router 4 has not been set up for frame relay yet, so we have to specify encapsulation frame relay. But first I am going to give it a host name, and now we're going to enter the interface we want frame relay to be on, int se30, no IP address at this time, because we're going to tell it we're going to tell the interface that we want to work with frame relay, encapsulation frame relay, and we want to activate the interface. Now we want to create the sub interface, because we've told the router that we wanted to work with frame relay, so now we can specify sub interfaces. So dot 46 over here, if you're looking at my mouse, 46 gets you back to R1. So point to point, IP address 10.0. What is this? 2 dot, and this will be 1 because we gave router .2. So, and then give it an IP address, subnet mask 252. 255.255.252. Okay, that's good. Bandwidth 64. Frame relay interface-dlci, and where's the sub interface? 46 and 46. So go 46, and that sets up router 4. And I've reached the 10-minute mark, so I'm gonna stop the video here, and I'm gonna pick up right away, just to save video time. And please join me in part 3. Oops.